What's up everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome all Magic kitchen table players or EDH deck builders. Welcome everyone who likes casual Magic. A few weeks ago I bought myself a booster box of Core 20. And what did I find in the booster box? Atemsis, the All-Seeing. A really interesting blue sphinx that asked for a new deck. Before I started building the deck, to be honest, I will admit I went to search the World Wide Web of cards to see what is already out there. And what did I find? Not a lot actually. There was not a lot on Atemsis. I found a few commander decks here and there. I did find a sweet brew by Absurd Heroine. You might know her, superstar Magic YouTube streamer. She plays on Arena online a lot and she makes cool, not really that competitive decks. So be sure to check her channel out. I've put the link in the description below. And I really enjoyed her deck, but I think it lacks some things that we in casual Magic land can do. Because they don't have the cards in Arena, but we do. As you might have noticed, I've built my deck in a non-competitive way with a lot of diversity in it. And I even decided just to put one of each legendary card that I play in the deck. So even in this deck I only play one Atemsis. Now of course you can play more if you want to build a deck. Adding green was very important for me to make this deck because I wanted the deck to work with the win condition of this guy Atemsis. I'll make it a bit bigger and just put it here. Atemsis is a sphinx. It costs 6 mana. It flies, it's a 4/5, and when you tap it and pay 3 mana, you can draw 2 cards and you have to discard 1 card. But there's something fun on the card. The following text was the text that really excited me to build this deck. Whenever Atemsis All-Seeing deals damage to an opponent, you may reveal your hand. If cards with at least 6 different converted mana costs are revealed this way, that player loses the game. So the card says it deals damage, not combat damage, and that's a big difference. So it's really good and I really wanted to build a deck around this feature. So here we go. I have 2 cards that are really cool, and that was the main reason I wanted to add green. The first one is Paradoxical Outcome and the second one is Seasons Past. But more on that later in the deck tag. Before we start with the card list, I do want to thank Magic Card Market for giving us some vouchers. If you want to win a voucher, you only have to do one thing. You can subscribe to the channel and like some videos, put a comment below a video, and when we have 100 subscribers, I will just give a voucher away to one lucky subscriber. And if you don't want to win a voucher and you just like to see my face, you can always also subscribe. So, as I said, you don't really have to subscribe, but do it anyway. Subscribe to my channel.
Subscribe to my channel.
Alright, before we head into the card list, I want to go a little bit into detail into the mana curve. We play 24 0 drops, that's 23 lands and 1 artifact that costs 0 mana. I play 8 1 drops, 8 2 drops, 7 3 drops, 4 4 drops, 5 5 drops, but not really, 4 6 drops, also not really, 1 7 drop and 1 8 drop. So we have a lot of variation in our mana curve, and which is really important to make Atemsis his win condition work. So how do you play this deck? Well, this is kind of a defensive deck, so you won't go out guns blazing with small creatures and go attacking all the time. No, the idea is more to build your hand search for Atemsis and then try to kill your opponent with the special win condition. Of course, there are some powerful creatures in the deck which also can help you win the game by itself. So, I was already talking about two cards that are really important in the deck. Paradoxical Outcome can bounce you a lot of creatures back to your hand, and you can draw cards for each creature that you put back in your hand. And actually, it's not only creature, it's also permanent. So that means you can fill up your hand and then do damage with Atemsis and win the game outright. And then there's another card which really helps to get those specific cards in your hand. It's called Seasons Past. It's a mythic from Shadows over Innistrad and it's a really cool card. It gets a lot of cards back from your graveyard, and we also play a little bit of a small graveyard team in the deck. Enough strategy now. I know where you came here for. You want to see some card lists, so here we go. The lands are considered 0 mana cost, which is imported for Atemsis. I play 7 forests and 7 islands. Now I play a little bit more green cards than blue cards in the deck, but as Atemsis is triple blue, it's important that we can cast him or her. I don't know, is it a him or her? It's a sphinx. What the hell? What the hell is a sphinx? I have no clue what a sphinx is. Okay, maybe I'll make a new video on which sex does a sphinx have, or maybe it doesn't have a sex at all. I think I'm going a little bit out of bounds here. Back to the mana base, Bram, back to the mana base. Okay, yes, 7 forests, 7 islands. I also play cycling lands, Lonely Sandbar and Tranquil Ticket. They are useful to search for cards you need, and it's also useful to get cards into the graveyard. Terramorphic Expanse also helps with this, because it has a similar function, but you don't really cycle cards, you search for the lands you have in your deck. Then there's also Simic Growth Chamber, who gives you 2 colors and can bounce a land back to your hand. Maybe it can bounce a cycling land, which you can use to draw another card, or it could bounce back a Thornwood Falls, which is a super dual land, and I love the art on that card as well, which can give you another life if you need it. So a diverse mana base, but very well tuned for Atemsis to win. So we play 23 lands, and of course we play a lot of creatures in both colors, green and blue. Let's have a look. Because we want some flexibility to send back permanents to our hand, we will use a bunch of creatures with enter the battlefield triggers that we can reuse if needed. The first one is the well-known Fog Frog. I play 2 on them, and we can even reanimate it from our graveyard with a card I'm going to talk about later. Then I will play some cards that are defensive and can also draw you some cards. I play 1 Elvish Visionary, 2 Wall of Blossoms, 2 Coiling Oracles, which draw you cards or ramp you mana. And then I also play 1 Sakura Tribe Elder and 1 Burnish Heart. They also help you search for mana cards, and they will also go to your graveyard. So maybe you can get them back with Seasons Past. Who knows? In the 3-drop slot, I play 1 Reclamation Sage and 1 Eternal Witness. 2 very strong cards that you can search for also, and they can be a solution for a lot of problems that your opponent throws at you. Also, I play a Wishful Selkie for the card draw, a Trinket Mage, which can search 5 of the 6 artifacts in the deck, and I play 1 Mirror Image, which is great with all the creatures that have Enter the Battlefield trigger, especially with the very big creatures. In the 4-drop slot, I play 3 creatures. I play a Timur Sabertooth, and I play a Roaring Primadox. 2 creatures that can bounce creatures back to your hand, which is important for Atemsis win condition. Then I also play 1 Frilled Mystic, which is just a good value creature that you can also use as a counter spell. In the 5-drop slot I play a Genesis, which can also get you creatures back from your graveyard. I play 1 Cavalier of Gales, which is just an awesome card that I also had in my booster box. So I thought, well, I better play it because it's such a cool card and I don't have any elemental decks lined up. So let's try it in this deck. And I play a super defensive card, which is called Acidic Slime. It kills lands, creatures because it has Death Touch, enchantments or artifacts. Great defensive card. In the 6-drop slot I only play Atemsis All-Seeing. I only play 1 copy, but of course if you decide to build the deck, no one is holding you back to play just 1. You can play more. I just like to play 1 legendary creature of each. On the top end of the curve of the creatures, I play a Pelaka Worm. I like the big worm, it gives you a lot of life and when it dies it will draw you a card. So this is even a separate win condition, especially with a mirror image and then some bounce spells. You can play it all over again, gain 7 life, draw some cards, gain 7 life, make a lot of worms. Very cool. Alright, these were the creatures. Now let's have a look at the artifacts. As you noticed, I play a Trinket Mage and the mage can search up Tormod's Crypt or an either Spellbomb. The Tormod's Crypt is great against graveyard removal and the Spellbomb is also a defensive card that you can cycle away to draw another card. The following cards are very important in the deck. Sorcerer's Wand and Viridian Longbow both enable Atemsis to deal directly 1 damage to your opponent. And this will hopefully be enough to kill your opponent if you have 6 cards of different converted mana costs in your hand. Sometimes it will work, sometimes you will fail miserably, but well, at least it's going to be a fun deck to play, right? Crystal Shard is the only artifact you can't search for with the Trinket Mage, but I really wanted to include it because it can also bounce cards back into your hand, so you can play them all over again, or you can set up your hand with Atemsis, and it can also be useful to slow down your opponent. Now let's head into the instants and sorceries. String of Disappearance is a really nice addition from Modern Horizons. It plays kind of like an unsummon, but you can bounce more than 1 creature to your hand. And then there's Neoform, a very cool card which can fetch you a lot of creatures. It could even give you the following powerful play. Say you have a Genesis on the battlefield, you just Neoform it so you can get it into your graveyard because you want Genesis to be in the graveyard, and you fetch up Atemsis, so great play. Of course you can also play it on small creatures to search for a Reclamation Sage or for an Eternal Witness, so a very flexible card in the deck. Then of course there are the 2 cards I already talked a lot about, so I'm just going to briefly mention them. Paradoxical Outcome and Seasoned Past are really great. You can even play more copies, but I just decided to play a lot of creatures and play a bit on defense, and it will give you some time to search for the cards and to set up your hand. So 1 of each is actually enough for me in the deck. Then there's also Shared Summons that could help you find your Atemsis and another card of a converted mana cost you want, and Flood of Tears, which could bounce the whole board and enables you to play Atemsis for free. Then there are some special cards. Redupliate Replicate is actually a split card, but the converted mana cost is the converted cost of the 2 sides of the card. So this card you can actually play for 2 mana or for 3 mana, but actually in case of Atemsis it has converted mana cost of 5. So interesting that you know this, because actually it's an expensive card that you can play for cheap. Similar with Reason Belief, which has converted mana cost 6, but you can actually play Reason for 1. So you play Reason for 1 and scry 3, and then afterwards, when the card is in the graveyard, you can maybe play Belief. The deck isn't not really built to get the right cards on top, but sometimes it can work. If you can get a Palaka Worm or an Atemsis on top of your library, it could even work with a belief. The last card I want to talk about is also a card you will never play for 8 mana. You can delve it and remove cards in your graveyard to play it for a lot cheaper. It's called Treasure Cruise and it will draw you 3 cards. So very cool card in the deck as well. This was the deck, now let's head into the power rankings. To be honest, this is not really a super strong deck, but you know, you haven't come here to see super strong top 8 deck lists. No, you just want to see fun brews and that's why you're here. So this deck is not that powerful. It's also pretty complex to play. So you really need to know your deck, know all the combinations of the cards to get the right cards in your hand for the Atemsis win condition to work. But when it works, it's much sweeter, of course, if you can win this way. So it's worth it. You'll need a little bit of practice if you first start out with this deck. But trust me, you'll have so much fun when you can kill your opponent with an Atemsis. Consistency, I like to play a lot of one-offs. I gave it a 6. To be honest, I must say I'm quite happy how the deck plays, even with a lot of one-offs. I got the win condition with Atemsis a few times already, so I'm hesitating between a 6 and a 7, but let's keep it safe, let's give it a 6. It's not really an offensive deck, so that's why I give it a 5, but it plays quite well on defense, so defense I gave it an 8. Alright, now let's head into the metagame review. Against aggro decks, the deck isn't that good because it plays a bit defensive, but it will take you some time. So if you have a really aggressive deck, you are probably dead before you can cast your Atemsis. It has some defensive cards like Spore Frog and Wall of Blossoms in it, but to be honest, the matchup against aggressive decks is not that great. Versus mid-range decks, you'll have a little bit more time, so the matchup is better and I gave it a 7. And also versus control decks, I like the matchup because you have a lot of recursive cards, you can bounce cards back, you can draw a lot of cards, so that's quite good. Against a combo deck, I don't really like the interaction that much, so I only gave it a 5. But to be honest, I haven't tested a lot against combo decks, so let's put a little asterisk with the 5 as well. So this was the metagame review. Now let's head into the maybe board, and I specially made this one for you commander players.
I am Jimmy Wong, your host of the Command Zone.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
Because in commander, if you want to have Atemsis as your commander, you can only play blue. So I'm mainly going to focus on blue cards in the maybe board. Aether Adept is a really good defensive card. It's also a wizard, which makes Sorcerer's Wand a little bit more exciting when you play them together. So that's why I included it in the maybe board. Stunt Double is your mirror image that also works on opponent's creatures and you can flash it in. That means you can also play it as an instant on your opponent's turn. When you have Atemsis out, Karan's Temporal Sundering is also a great card to give you extra turns, so extra time to set up your hand. And Temporal Mastery is also one of these cards that you can cheat in for a lot cheaper than the converted mana cost. If you play it on the miracle cost, it only costs 2 mana and it will also give you an extra turn. The following 2 cards I also found on the internet in different builds of Atemsis and I really like them as well. Aetherize you can use on your attacking creatures to get them back into your hand, or you can also use it to stall the board when your opponent is attacking you. So a very diverse card. You are going to play it before damage, of course, if you want your Atemsis to work. Then Absurd Heroine also played Drawn for Dreams, and I also really like this card as a card selection card. So yeah, you can also include it in the deck. The following card does a little bit the same as the Viridian Longbow or the Sorcerer's Wand, but it's an enchantment, so it's a bit more vulnerable, so I don't really like it that much, but I can imagine in a commander deck it can go in. It's called Hermetic Study. Of course, you want to play it on your Atemsis and then tap your Atemsis so it can deal 1 damage directly to a creature, but mostly to a player, and hopefully then you'll have 6 cards with different mana costs in your hand so you can win the game outright. I've also added 2 artifacts that cost 1 mana, so you can search them with the Trinket Mage. One is called Universal Solvent and it can kill any permanent, and there's also a very good defensive card called Pacification Array. You can also search it with your Trinket Mage because it only costs 1 mana. And if you got a little bit money to spare, this card alone costs almost as much as the deck, or maybe even more, depends on which country you live in, of course. But it's great with Atemsis. It's called Senses Divining Top, and it could draw you a card, or it can look at the top 3 cards of your library and you can put them back in any order. So great card, and of course you can also search it with your Trinket Mage. Last card of the maybe board is not a blue card. Of course we also play green, and Yisan the Wandering Bard also searches for a lot of creatures of different converted mana costs. First it's going to be 1, then 2, then 3 and so on. So I thought this card also goes great in the deck. I haven't tried it out yet, but I do want to try it in the deck as well. Yisan the Wandering Bard, you will certainly be in the deck when I play it next time. This was the Atemsis deck list with blue and green. I really enjoyed playing this deck, so let me know if you try it out. How did you like it? If you want to add different cards in the deck, just put it in the comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to win maybe a card market voucher, and as always, keep it casual. I'll see you next time. Bye!